Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. If you have your own suggestion for special selections, you can find a link to submit those in the description below. Today's special selection comes at us from Jonathan. It says UFO, Rock Bottom, live from Strangers in the Night. This is the best live guitar solo I've ever heard. It's from Michael Schenker, who is often called the German Eddie Van Halen and was brothers with Rudolf Schenker from Scorpions. Strangers in the Night album is one of the great live albums of the classic rock era, and this particular track is Michael at his peak. Alright, let's get into this then. We got an 11.5-minute track ahead of us. Let's dive in. We got some UFO, Rock Bottom. Really great production for being a live performance. Something interesting going on in the bass of this. It almost sounds like, I don't know, the bass kick and the bass guitar are having a really interesting color reaction. All right. Okay, gotta have some cowbell. Ooh. We didn't really go to a halftime, but they definitely cut the intensity back. Love that bass line right there. Okay, I take it we're in the guitar solo now. Let's see what this guy's got. Getting a little spicy there. Although not really digging into that anymore. Curious if that was a wrong note. Also contrasting ideas. He's done a lot of runs into and out of ranges, and to make this drastic jump down. Really nice transition into and out of that clean guitar tone. Yep. Bringing in some chromaticism. Yeah, and we're bringing back some ideas from the vocals in the bridge. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take a moment.
The company's offered you the options of wrecking it for them after we finish, so anybody who wants to take a speaker with them.
I'm going to take a moment to ignore what the guitar was doing in those last 30 seconds. I really want to shed a bit of a spotlight on the drums during that big rock ending. So the two guitars are shredding it, whatever. The drummer's like going wild. But I want you, if you decide to, after I describe this, go back and listen to it. The drummer, listen specifically to the snare. It actually doesn't have a lot of accent on it at all. There's a lot of force being applied to the toms, to the cymbals, but the snare is sort of this rustling sound that's sort of sitting underneath all this other intensity and power. It's kind of being drowned out. And I really want to put a lot of attention on that, because that is not easy to do. You are, especially like we've talked in the past about jazz drumming versus rock drumming. Jazz drumming is very light and airy, usually more of a wrist thing, whereas rock drumming is harder, heavier, more aggressive. It's like full arm swings, right? So this dude is just swinging his arms everywhere, getting all these notes out. You know, he's got these full fills going on, these rolls. But every once in a while, like every other note or whatever, he's doing full intensity to hit something and then backing it down to a light intensity to get this nice little louder than a ghost note thing going on with the snare. And it is just this beautiful display of control. Volume dynamic control of the drummer. I think this probably gets overlooked a lot because, one, the drums are kind of going crazy and everything except the snare is rather loud. On top of that, the guitarist, who has already proven that he can write a phenomenal solo piece, is kind of stealing the spotlight right here. So I don't think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this subtle snare action that's going on, but it is phenomenal. And then not only that, the drummer slowly removes focus from the exterior stuff and goes into this nice little snare roll that he raises the volume on while slowing down the hits, right? So maybe he's doing 16th notes, and then he moves to 8th notes, and then quarter notes, and now he's doing whole notes. But while he's doing this, first of all, we have a really, really smooth progression from these quiet, light hits to these louder hits. But also on top of that, we have a ridiculously smooth rhythmic progression too. This is not just, we were doing eighth notes, now we're doing quarter notes. It is more of like he is, shifting the tempo, right? He is actually, that's exactly what it is. He's using a retardando right here. And he is gradually slowing the speed. And just having this much control, like, I really wish more of the drum work would have showcased this. My guess is that this is an older band. So this says released on 79. I don't know if that's the live version was released on 79. Maybe it was recorded in 79. Maybe it was recorded before that. And this single made from the live was released on 70. I don't know. But a 70s band seems about right for this. It feels very much in line with the hard rock era. The drums just, they really didn't get very technical in this era or genre. So I can't really say it's anything against the drummer in particular that this stuff was showcased. Well, kind of wasn't showcased, right? It was more of a part that was kind of hidden behind the guitarist. But there's just a lot of control here. And it shows a massive expertise of being a drummer, of having all this control over everything in front of him, this entire kit, and just having this immaculate understanding of time. Time feel is something that if you've ever watched people who don't have rhythm try to dance or even keep a beat on a drum kit, even something simple like, you put their foot on the bass pedal and you put their hand on the snare and you tell them to alternate, or even just hit them both at the same time and they can't keep a steady rhythm. Rhythm is not something that I think is innate to everyone. I believe everybody can learn rhythm. I don't think you have to be born with an understanding for it. But I do think that people who have an affinity for rhythm make fantastic, I mean, that's a dumb statement, to make fantastic drummers. Anyways, I think that this drummer, though, has a strong affinity for rhythm. He just seems to feel it very naturally, because that glide from the full tempo they were at until he was hitting those ba, 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 those really, lengthy notes, was one of the smoothest retardandos, gradual retardandos, where you are, you're not playing a whole note. He's playing eighth notes, right, against this. Just ridiculously smooth. It was just a phenomenal thing. Unfortunately, I didn't really hear what the guitarist was doing at that point. I think that's fine. I have a pretty solid understanding of the guitarist's abilities as both a composer and a musician from his solo section. But yeah, I'm really glad I keyed into what the drums were doing there, because it was the only chance that they really got to show off some of their chops, unfortunately. And it was just phenomenal. And like I said, I know this was requested because of the guitar solo, and the guitar solo took up the majority of the song. To me, that's probably why a lot of people remember the track, or it's the thing that sticks out most to people for it. But I mean, as is usual with stuff like that, sometimes you sleep on really cool stuff because you're focusing on, what obviously deserves the attention. I'm not trying to downplay any of the guitar work here, but I do get the feeling that the drums get slept on a little bit. And unfortunately, like I said, it's because they don't really get a chance to show off in the spotlight. But I wanted to put some attention on that because that was phenomenal work. Now, here's something really cool. And the more that we've explored classic hard rock, right, this style of rock from the 70s, the more I'm beginning to piece this together as that missing link between blues and modern rock. I always knew that jazz and blues influenced modern rock, but I never really saw that link that tied them together. And when we started looking at some bands during Hard Rock Week, Classic Rock Week, I don't remember which one it was. I started to see it, and right here, this is interesting. Okay, so this could be described in terms of a traditional song structure for rock. There is a verse, and that's where that interesting 4-bar phrase comes from in the guitars. Has that really nice hammer-on idea at the end of it in the fourth bar. Sort of like a flute trill on guitar, just bouncing back and forth between two notes real quick. And we move from that into the chorus, which is the rock bottom, that part. And then we go back into the chorus. Then we go back into the verse. Then we have quite an extended solo section, which would be our I mean, we actually do have a bridge going into that too, don't we? That's the that was that darker section. I don't remember what was being said. I might not even really heard the lyrics. But yeah, it had a drastically different vibe to it. Everything else was kind of upbeat, and this kind of brought a bit of a melancholic minor edge to the song. So then that's pretty short-lived though, and we move into the extended solo section, and we come out of that, and we do the final verse, final chorus. So we have an A, B, A, B, C, B idea. But what if we combine the verse and the chorus into a single idea? Because honestly, the guitar work, the drum work doesn't change too much. What if we look at that as just A? Well, then we have A, because we repeat that verse chorus idea again. Then an extended solo section, which is B, and this does a drastic departure from the atmospheres and vibes from A. It is highly based in personal exploration and personal expression. We move from that and we return back to the original atmosphere and vibes and pre-composed ideas from the verse and chorus. We have A, B, A. Well, now let's see. That's a bit familiar here. What genre utilizes that song structure? Jazz, man. Jazz. Right? We have A, B, A, and our B section is just a drastic departure from a lot of the ideas we have been looking at in the main composed section. It's more about personal expression and freedom to play around with and compose on the fly ideas that I personally feel like I want to showcase utilizing the chord progression of the song. And, you know, I was about halfway through the solo section and I was thinking, this is, there's some nice ideas in here. There's some impressive showmanship concepts. I like some of the stuff that's going on with, the call and response, but, it's very isolated. I don't really see how any of this fits in with what we were doing. And when we got out of the solo section, though, and we went back into the verse, and I was like, and, I thought to myself, yeah, drastically different vibes. It almost sounds like a different song here. And I was like, wait a minute. Jazz does that. We just got done talking. I don't remember what video it was. Yeah, I can't. It was a recent reaction though, and I was talking about how jazz solo sections are kind of their own isolated aspect, and you can kind of. Well, it's actually a good practice to utilize some ideas from the main song in your performance, in your soloing, but it's not necessary. It's not even expected in some cases. If you're in big band or swing, something that has more of a casual audience, it probably works a little bit better for your audience. But if you're playing something a bit more experimental, you got some, freeform jazz or bebop or even jazz fusion, it's kind of not out of place to completely change up the feeling of a song in the solo section. It's about the player expression, not about expanding or adapting the song that's come before it, which is what a lot of rock does. When you think of, especially like Metallica, I think Metallica does a fantastic job of this in crafting their solos as expansions of the melodic ideas they approach in their verses and choruses. You can hear the storytelling structure of how one riff becomes another, or how parts of a riff become aspects of a solo and stuff like that, where everything feels very connected. It's very different in jazz. The solo sections tend to stand out on their own. And that's exactly what happened here. And, again, it's kind of starting to piece things together. We have more rock style drums here. I think there's more, especially the ideas in the solo section, I think are very rock style, showing off kind of concepts of guitar playing. So we're definitely moving more into a rock area, especially with, I mean, even the verse. We have a 4-bar riff with our melodies. Actually, that's kind of jazzy though. That's kind of, I mean, 4 bars is a bit short because jazz usually works off of 16-bar blocks. But okay, so yeah, I will say that this maybe sits a little closer to the rock side of the spectrum if we're moving between blues and rock. But the song structure, I think this is one of the closest to jazz that I've heard yet. As far as the way that it's built, the way that the sections are played. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because it was this huge revelation I had at the end. I was actually going to speak a little bit negatively about the solo section feeling like a completely different song, but yeah, it's one of those connections that you kind of don't make initially, and I think I've probably even said that about some stuff before, where I'll say I really enjoyed everything, but this one section felt out of place, and it might have been a solo section, and yeah, I mean that's just kind of a jazz. Like I just accept it in jazz, but when I listen to rock, I have different expectations for it, and that's one of those biases I just got to keep in check. Like I said, I was about to speak a bit negatively about that, but instead something clicked and I found a way to speak a bit positively about it, and that's honestly what I prefer to do. You know, and I do have some things, well, we'll just dive into it. I do have some negative things to say about the solo. I don't think it was perfect. Well, that is to say, I don't think it fits well within the song, right? And I know I just went on this, like, why would you say that, Bryan? You just had this revelation about it. And it's true. The solo section feels very disjointed from the rest of it. Part of that I can chalk up to it being a live version. I wonder how this plays out on the studio version. My guess is that since I was given the live version specifically, there's new parts to this track. Maybe there's some improvised aspects to it. Maybe it's extended. Maybe the studio version is like 7 minutes and this one's 11 and a half, and that's because there's 4 extra minutes of soloing. But it does feel very disjointed. And if we had ended the song at the point where there was silence at like 10 minutes in, I don't think I would have had I don't think I would have had as much of an issue with it. But coming back into the A section after that feels very jarring. It is interesting though, because I don't remember it being too jarring going into this section. No, you know what? The guitar solo actually did adapt some of the ideas from that bridge part, that darker section, and slowly worked into it until we changed vibes. I don't remember what changed. It might have been a key change. Because I know he played around a bit with chromaticism, and definitely after that point, it was a different style. So it might have been a really nice transition into the vibes of the solo, but it definitely began to go just in a drastically different direction than the song, and returning back to that A section felt very weird. And like I said, I wonder if maybe there's better flow or cohesion in the studio version. And again, I know I just mentioned that this is like this is a bias that I need to keep in check. I don't have the same expectations of other genres, but that, I mean, that is still something I think of, and I want to bring that up. I don't necessarily know if I should call it a negative. I don't want to call it. I don't want to have the negative correlation with this song. I don't want people to think I'm being harsh on it, but it is a thought that I had while listening to it. Is that it feels a little bit out of place. It almost feels like these could be two different songs. And that's neither good nor bad. It's all about how it's utilized, and I just don't think it was utilized well here. I think if we dive when we dive into the lyrics, I think I'll be surprised if I find anything there that ties in thematically with the solo. And again, that's not a concern I have with jazz. I probably need to find a way to come to terms with that, but it is something that I think about, and I think it will influence a little bit of the way that I see that solo section. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like, I know I shouldn't have these feelings, but I do. These are what I'm thinking and feeling about this track. All right, I think I've sat on this for too long, though. Let's move on to this idea here. So I don't think I have a lot to speak about regarding the verse and chorus. I think they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. We have a simple 4-bar riff going on in the verse. I mean, in the guitars, that is kind of the same idea for the first 3 bars, and the 4th bar has this that hammer-on kind of flute trilling concept going on. Pretty standard for hard rock. We talked about this during Hard Rock Week. And we even talked about this a little bit during black metal. Like, this is just a thing. You have a 4-bar phrase. Your first 3 bars kind of set up a foundational concept, and your 4th bar does the lick, the equivalent of the drum fill for guitars. It is catchy. It's groovy. It's got a bit of syncopation to it. I dig it. I don't have anything against it. I just don't have really anything major to take away from it. Right? It does its job well. And honestly, that's the best you can ask for any part of a song, is for it to have a role to fill and to fill it expertly. There's this nice swinginess to the vocal melody that I think gives it a real strong catchiness. And then the drums do a fantastic job of laying down the metronome. Like, everything just kind of works here. I think what I really want to talk about, and of course, it's why it was suggested, is the solo. And what did Jonathan say here? I want to pull this up real quick to not misconstrue this. One of the best live guitar solos I've ever heard. All right. Now, see, I'm a bit out of time for this. Like, I grew up with hair metal, right? My mom loved, I can't even think of the name of the group. Motley Crue and Kiss, and my dad was big into all that stuff too. I grew up listening to Twisted Sister, and man, what's that? Loverboy? You guys know Loverboy? Like that? I feel that name never gets brought up in hair metal bands. Maybe it's because it's not hair metal, but man, I listened to a lot of Loverboy when I was young. So like, it's not that I don't have a history with the tried and true guitar solo in each song. I grew up in my formative years of music not really listening to anything with the guitar solo, right? In my teenage years, I played jazz, right? So listened to some jazz. I have the idea of the solo in my bones. Like, I appreciate the solo. But a lot of the rock I listened to was radio rock at the time, which had kind of gotten rid of the idea of the solo. And that's kind of the music I became, I gravitated to. Also, classical doesn't really have too many solos. You might have a solo instrument, but it's not too often that the song will break for a single instrumentalist to perform. So I think that I'm just not in a good position to provide criticism on a solo like this, the way that it's done. I definitely lean more towards storytelling solos. And that, I mean, I even include that with jazz, right? I don't mind my like avant-garde expressionist jazz solos. I can find them, much like I find this, exhilarating to listen to. There's definitely things to learn from it, but it's not what I enjoy. I enjoy for the solos to be an adaptation and an expansion of the story being told throughout the rest of the song. It needs to be, at least casually for me, a continuation of what we've already heard. Not an isolated moment to show off. And like, again, I totally appreciate this is a live solo. It's probably extended for the reason of showing off. So I want to focus on the positives here. But I also want to bring to light that I don't see this as the phenomenal guitar solo that Jonathan does. It is good. There's some interesting ideas in here. I'm going to lay them out, but to me, it's missing that one key ingredient of thematic continuation. And, maybe bringing that back to jazz, some of my favorite guitar solos, some of my favorite jazz solos are ones that work within the confines of the song. They express the emotions of the instrumentalist, the musician, while still seeming to continue the storytelling of the A section. I really like that cohesion. Okay. That helps me reconcile with that a little bit, because I was still like, I was gonna walk away from this video like, man, what does that even mean? When I can appreciate a jazz solo and not a rock solo, they're not different. But I think I figured that out. I'm still probably gonna ponder it, as like with everyone else. I'm growing as a music listener as well. There's definitely things I don't quite know about myself or my listening habits that I have learned while doing this channel. And I think this is one of those areas where I'm definitely have to grow a little bit and figure out exactly what it is that I think about these things, to put it into words. So anyways, let's focus on the positives here. First of all, like I said, the transition into the solo is phenomenal. Right? There wasn't really a moment when it was, okay, it's the solo time. There was definitely a moment where the lead guitarist took the spotlight, but I didn't really feel like they were soloing yet. They were basically just playing a lead melody line. And the way that we moved from that idea, coming out of the darker minor bridge into this free-form solo section, I thought was masterfully done. And I wonder, again, just how much of this section is the studio one, and where the cutoff is when you reach the extended part of this live show. You know what? I'm going to stop saying that. I'm going to go watch the studio. I'm going to go listen to the studio version after this. But it is something that like constantly crosses my mind. Because there are elements of callbacks, right? And these are going to be the parts to talk about. Like we have that nice transition into it, but then we also have the left guitar after the lead guitarist noodles around for like a minute or two, 3 minutes maybe. The left guitar, the rhythm guitar, comes in with a slight variation on the vocal melody from that minor bridge. And I was like, okay, cool, we got this callback. But it was also a foreshadowing, because the main guitar ended up harmonizing with it and then adapting that idea into their next concept. Like this part all felt extremely pre-composed. The rest of the guitar solo, where the rhythm guitar is doing chords, just kind of vamping on some like some palm muted stuff, the drummer's just laying down the metronome, and then the right pan guitar is just going bonkers. That feels improvised. This part, though, is crafted, and it ties into ideas that came before it. And this, paired with the smooth transition into the solo section, I would wager make up the studio part, because there's plenty of callbacks to what came before, and I think there's some really strong story writing in here. There's probably a little bit of noodling around between these sections, but not like it is in this live version. It kind of goes off the rails in a way to showcase the performer's emotions, the mindset they're in, and to that expression I was talking about with jazz solos, the personal musician expression. And like, there's some really cool ideas in here too, even if they don't support the story being told throughout the rest of the song. I mean, first of all, we have a lot of use of space for a little bit. I mean, there definitely gets to a point where he just kind of starts shredding, but I like how when we first get into this open area, right, a lot of the vibes leave. We have, just the guitar over there, the drum holding down a tempo, and we get these little flits of licks, right? Maybe just like 5 or 6 notes and then a moment of silence. And it's almost like the guitarist is, prepping himself up to get into the heavier, lengthier stuff. But he's also allowing this section to breathe, which is going to be in stark contrast to the rest of the solo, where we actually start picking up speed and are just barreling through ideas. And I absolutely love this. I talk a lot about guitar solos in rock and metal not really having rest in them, not really having space in them. And yeah, this was a really good showcase, at least the first half of it, of a guitar solo that understands that music is both sound and silence, to allow the space to be just as important as the notes that you're playing. And I really love that. Part of me wonders if that comes from the jazz back. Well, part of me wonders if this guitarist has a jazz background. Maybe not necessarily a jazz performer or musician, but listened to jazz growing up, because there's a lot of jazz in this in this solo, and that's one of the ideas that I think are more jazzier than rock. Very cool. We hear some nice shredding. There is that one note that was about a minute into the solo section. It started the line, and I was like, ooh, that's a spicy note. I was digging that. But he didn't really embellish on that idea. And what I mean by spicy notes, he picked a note that was outside the key, so it created some extra tension. But we were like playing 8th or 16th notes, so he kind of ran by it. It was more of this illusion of tension than actually having any sort of dissonance in the line. And I really liked that. I was like, okay, cool, we're going there. Let's see where he takes this. And then it just doesn't. It never brings it up again. We hit a chromatic section, but that's a chromatic section. That's very different than using a note out of the key, because chromatic by definition is every note. There is nothing out of the key. So it makes me wonder if that was a wrong note. And if it was, I mean, masterful pickup from that. Just kept going like nothing happened. I'd imagine if I was watching this live, there wouldn't even be any body language that suggested it was wrong. Because honestly, like in jazz, there's no such thing as wrong notes. It's all about how you use them. And as long as you don't physically look like you messed up, people are just going to accept that it was intentional. And I think that's what happened there. And I liked it. It sounded great. But he never dug into it, which like I said, kind of makes me feel like it was not intentional. Or if it was, very sparsely used. I would have loved to have a little bit more of that. Some really nice shredding again, more spacing. And I think this is about the part where we hit the duet section, where we brought back the vocal line. And then, we had that really nice run into the silence, and I've already spoken about that. Just a really weird way to bring us back into the A section when they've already demonstrated that they know and can have these really nice transitions into and out of the core foundational work and the solo part. And it just felt kind of weird. So yeah, like I said, I enjoy this. There's a lot of really cool things going on in here. Obviously, a very talented guitarist. Really great phrasing. I think that's my big takeaway. Is the phrasing. Oh, there was that one palm muted section that I thought was very cool. It came out of nowhere. It was very interesting phrasing on that. Um, but he was like, oh no, something else I need to talk about. Yeah. So, anyways, he was playing like this run or whatever, and then there was a bit of silence, and then he just goes into this palm muted like plunking, like just a bunch of plunking sounds, and just shredding on that, and slowly opening it up. Actually, that is something that I noticed all throughout this band is a slow progression of dynamics. There are moments where it's like harsh stops. We were doing this, now we're doing this. But there's also a lot of moments of slowly transitioning between two ideas, moving from the A section into the solo. The couple of dynamic elements that we saw in the drums during the Big Rock ending. The transition from freeform solo into a callback to a lick that takes us back into some freeform soloing. Like that whole section was just gorgeous. I mean, yeah, that's the kind of stuff I love to hear in solos. And then all the dynamic work. There's also a lot of transitions between ranges in the solo section. So we hear a lot of moments where the guitarist will raise. He'll like run through notes to go up or run through notes to come down. There's not really a lot of moments where he jumps octaves. And, for better or worse, it creates something that I think is a bit more predictable. But then also when he jumps from the higher range down an octave and starts playing down there, it felt, I got caught off guard by that. And again, I think when it happened, I think I actually said something odd. Or I said it felt odd that he did it. But in retrospect, it's great contrast. Because he sets up expectations for his styles and then subverts them. He makes it feel like he's always going to have these nice runs. Speaking of those runs, he loved doing arpeggiations all throughout here. I really wonder what it is about arpeggios that he's drawn to, or if maybe arpeggiations have anything to do with the song thematically, but we had straight arpeggiations, we had rising third arpeggiations, which is where you would rise a third, come down a bit, rise a third, come down a bit, rise a third, come down a bit. So it has like this sort of like weird snaking feel to it where you're not just constantly ascending in pitch. Yeah, like lots of arpeggiation though, all over the place. And it's kind of like, at least as far as I say, his bread and butter, moving between areas. If he's on one note and the next idea starts on the next note, rather than just jumping down to it on that bar or on that beat, he'll spend a beat or two to arpeggiate into that range. And it works well. It makes everything feel very clean, has a very smooth transition between ideas. And that is a strong part of this. I talked about whatever that, man, I can't remember what video we did all this jazz talk on. But yeah, that was one of the things though, was that guitar solos feel very segmented. Rock solos feel very segmented, where we were doing the shred, now we're doing the tapping, now we're doing the melodic bit, and it sort of lacks the flow. It lacks the purpose moving between the ideas. And that is not true here at all. This dude has a phenomenal understanding of finding ways to move between ideas, understanding that the transitory licks are just as important as the big showing-offing licks, show-offy licks, and putting just as much weight on them to carry the solo as the big moments that you'll remember. He has purpose to everything that he plays, and I greatly enjoy that. I think it shows a mastery and understanding of melodic composition that I don't always see in guitar solos, which is always weird because like I'll see really strong melodic writing in the main stuff, and then we'll get to a guitar solo, and it feels like they regressed in their melodic composition style. It's always a weird thing. It's like they're trying to obey the rules of rock music, but the people who made those rules don't have didn't really have strong compositional understanding of melody writing. It's all riff writing. So you can be a band that writes great melody, but you go to write your rock solo or your metal solo, and you emulate your inspirations, and it ends up feeling very riffy. And this is the place where the melody should be the strongest. Really weird when I find music like that. Anyways, I am rambling here. Let me get into the lyrics. We'll see where that takes us, and we'll wrap this up. Okay. There's some metaphor in here that's going a bit over my head, but it seems to be about life's vices bringing you to rock bottom. The song's called Rock Bottom. So your lowest point in life, your addictions, your vices are, continuously dragging you down until you're broke or emotionally destroyed, or, whatever your rock bottom is. Maybe you are socially alone, right? You've destroyed all your social connections. Now you've reached rock bottom emotionally, or, whatever. And like verse 1 and 2 seem to, I don't know. Verse 1 goes right over my head. 17, a nature's queen, you'll know what I mean. I do like the interline rhyming pattern note. That's pretty neat. 21, a long one, you can see the numbers run. Okay, we got numbers doing stuff. Now you look so peaceful, lying there asleep with the wings of God above you before the spirits meet rock bottom. Oh, wait, no, that doesn't that doesn't go together. With the wings of God above you before the spirits meet rock bottom. Yeah, it's not before the spirits meet rock bottom. This is a separate statement. So it looks like somebody died or is on their deathbed after reaching rock bottom. Verse 2 says, Shadow Earth is closing in above the lamps in your street. Lucifer walks down for you to meet. Minutes pass so slowly by the hands on your clock. Heaven's door won't open when you knock. Interestingly, the rhyme pattern has changed. It went from interline. Well, actually, the first two lines were interline, where all the rhymes are within its own thing. So we got 17, queen, mean. 1, 1, run. But then lines 3 and 4 rhyme against themselves. So we have inter, AA. Whereas verse 2, we have an AABB, all of them rhyming on the end syllable of the line. So that's interesting. But this also looks like the person's already moved on. It says Lucifer goes walking to meet you. Minutes passed on the hand. Minutes pass slowly on the clock. Heaven's door don't open when you knock. So you went to heaven and the gates are closed and the devil's getting ready to drag you down. Now, the bridge does turn into minor. It gets darker. It gets more mysterious. There's more tension in it. It says, well, with all the darkness closing in, will the light reveal your soul? Just one sweet kiss on your clay cold lips. Long, long sleep you'll never know. Where do we go from here? And this I don't get. It almost seems like they got brought back. Like they were they were almost dead. They had the vision of the afterlife, and then the EMTs, revived them, resuscitated them. But maybe with the darkness closing in, will the light reveal your soul? So with Lucifer at your tail, just one sweet kiss on your clay cold lips, long sleep you'll never know. Yeah, I don't know. That one's going over my head. But the where do we go from here? again, I mean, it helps to know where here is, and I don't know where here is to know, what this might be revealing. Has this person awoke with visions of the afterlife, and where do they go knowing that that's on the other side, or that the gates weren't opening? I mean, that works well for rock bottom. Like, not only have you gone rock bottom on this plane, but you were rock bottom on the afterlife. Like, you were almost sent to hell, and then you come back. What are you going to do now? Are you going to turn your life around? Because you know what awaits you. That kind of works. I hope that's what they were intending, because I like that vibe. But then the guitar solo, that's got nothing. I really don't feel like there's much storytelling thematic ideas being presented there. Although I guess it could just be the mental state of this person, right? Kind of chaotic, kind of all over the place, sometimes chromatic, sometimes consonant, sometimes holding out notes, just longing, and other times manic. Uh, you know, what somebody would think when if they were to be brought back from the dead, in a sense. They've been dead for 10 seconds or whatever. Knowing that if they don't change, they got an eternity of damnation ahead of them. What kind of mental state that would put you in. Maybe the guitar solo works. And then we return back to verse 1 and then the chorus of rock bottom. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we have the chorus, rock bottom, but it's like super catchy and upbeat. And it's like, this is the worst part of this dude's life. He is lying in a street somewhere. The wings of God are hanging over him. He's about to go to the afterlife. You're like, rock bottom. Oh, man. Yeah, that's nothing against it. I find that sort of dissonance comical to me. I've talked about it before, sad songs with happy beats, happy songs with sad, no, not so much that one. Sad songs with happy beats are very common though. And I've had people explain to me what they see out of that. I guess I really wish I remember who this was. Somebody had told me that in their culture is the idea of dancing through the pain, and I think that's phenomenal. Um, but I still like it. To me, it's still contrasting. It's like hearing a cat moo or something like that. Like, it feels wrong, and for this story to be about uh, what I just explained and be so upbeat and chipper, it just cracks me up. Anyways, those are my thoughts on UFO's Rock Bottom. Pretty standard hard rock A section. Very interesting, phenomenal in some parts. B section. As a whole package, I'm not sure I'm completely sold on this specific performance of it. But if my guess is right, and that there's a lot of improvisational stuff and an extension of the guitar section, I may end up really enjoying the studio, or not even necessarily the studio, but if there is improvisation in this, a different live recording. That's one of the things I love about jazz is I can listen to a song 100 times and walk away with 100 different feelings towards it, or 100 different experiences based on who played it or what they were feeling when they played it. I can listen to the same person solo over the same song 2 nights in a row and get completely different songs out of it. And I think that's what's happening here. There's a little bit of improvisation going on that I think I might enjoy a different live version of. So let me know what you guys thought of this one. Anything that you liked or disliked about it. If you agreed with me on anything, if you disagreed with me on anything, just go ahead into the comment section and let me know. Above the comment section in the description box is a link to Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. It has everything related to the channel on it. You can pick up some merch. You can submit your own special selections. You can join the Patreon. You can follow me on Twitter, whatever you want. And above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll catch you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We'll be looking at another track from the Collaborations Week and another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.